What's up guys, Jared back. So it's no secret that China's been pumping out a lot of really unignorably cheap and great smartphones and tablets. However, a lot of those smartphones and tablets, you do have to sacrifice build quality as well as the components that go in there to achieve that price. However, sometimes on the other side of the coin, you don't have to sacrifice the build quality or the components that go in there or even the price point. With all that said, this is my review of the FNF iFive X3. So this is the FNF iFive X3. Now, as we go through this review, I just want you guys to keep in mind the price point. That's a really important factor on this device, that being $250. Now, up here at the top, we do have a 2 megapixel front-facing camera, capable of recording in 720p, though it doesn't produce the best quality images, but it should suffice if you want to make some video calls. The bezel of the display itself, actually, in my personal opinion, is actually perfect, both in landscape and portrait mode. It doesn't seem to be too big or too small to the point where my fingers could easily slip off and touch the display undesirably. Now, you might notice that we do have some bubbles in and around the display here, and that's because it's not actually a manufacturer's defect. It's actually a screen protector that the manufacturer puts on the display before it leaves the factory. Some of you guys out there might consider it really, really convenient, and I do also think it's actually a really nice addition for them to include that. However, if they're going to put it on, it would have been nice if they put it on properly the first time, because the OCD in me looks at those bubbles and goes crazy. Now, we do have a 10.1-inch IPS display with a resolution of 1900 by 1200, but that also equates to a DPI of about 240. So it is a bit on the low end. However, for daily tasks and for what you might be using this for on a day-to-day basis, it is definitely adequate. Now, on the left side of the device, we have our 3.5mm headphones port, as well as our micro USB port and a expandable micro SD card slot. And in addition to all that, we've got a micro HDMI out port, which seems to be the going trend for Chinese tablets these days. A lot of them seem to be coming with either mini HDMI out ports or micro HDMI out ports, and that's pretty cool. On the bottom of the device, nothing really too fancy other than the microphone and a little number here letting us know that we've got 16 gigabytes of internal storage, and that obviously coupled with the expandable micro SD card slot, I think it's a pretty good deal. As you can see, nothing fancy on the right side of the device. And as we move up to the top, we've got our aluminum power button coupled with our aluminum volume rocker, and that's because the build of the device is actually aluminum. And as you can see, flipping around to the back here, really nice sort of blue, dark blue color, and it is all of aluminum construction, and I believe it to be a unibody design. Up here at the top, we do have a 5 megapixel camera capable of recording 720p, just like the front, though again, you know, considering that price point, we're not looking at spectacular image quality here. On both the left and right side, you may notice that yes, we've got dual stereo rear-facing speakers. The rear-facing speakers, much like the 2013 Nexus 7, is an awesome addition. However, does it sound like the 2013 Nexus 7? Unfortunately, not so much. Though it's nice that they add it, and it should be adequate for the majority of people out there if you don't have any headphones lying around. I did find that at its highest volume, it wasn't quite loud enough for my needs, and it was obviously sounding a little bit tinny. So I found myself opting more often than not to use my headphones with movies and music or whatever else I might need it for. Jumping into the device, I wanted to point something really important out. Out of the box, this device comes with Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean running on it. However, over the past couple of months, the developer or the manufacturer has released an Android 4.4.2 KitKat update. Unfortunately, the over-the-air update system outside of, I believe, outside of China doesn't seem to work too well. So I did have to manually update it myself. If you're considering this tablet, then don't worry, because I do plan on doing a video in the near future on how to manually update this really easily. It should only take you about 5 minutes. So one thing that struck me right away was how close to 100% stock Android this UI is. In fact, it's so close to stock Android, aside from the Nexus 7. I mean, it's seriously, it's the closest thing to stock Android I've seen since a Nexus device. But it's so close to it, in fact, that if we long press on the screen, you'll notice that this is actually a launcher that a lot of us are familiar with, and that is the Google Now launcher. This actually comes in its KitKat form with the Google Now launcher, and that's pretty darn awesome. If we move into the application tray here, you can see that we've got, really, it's quite minimal in applications. Aside from all the applications I've downloaded myself, we've got some Google applications, obviously system applications such as music players, media players, video players, and so on. There's also a couple of Chinese applications that obviously for myself, because I don't understand Chinese languages, I had to hide those so that they wouldn't take up room on my app tray, as well as download updates. But aside from that, it's pretty darn bare bones. We can go ahead and jump into the settings menu here, and this kind of continues to prove the point that this is in fact quite like almost right bang on with stock Android. Moving down to sound, display, and right down to HDMI, you've got some different HDMI resolutions for your needs, screenshotting, and then aside from that, everything else is just stock Android. Now, as far as device performance is concerned, I've actually been quite impressed with it. It's running a RockChip RK3188 processor clocked at 1.6 gigahertz. It's a quad-core processor, and accompanied with 2 gigabytes of RAM. For all intents and purposes, it handles everyday tasks just fine, opening and closing applications, switching between background tasks. It handles all of that with no problems whatsoever. The only biggest complaint as far as the performance is concerned is the web content viewing, web browsing really. When I visited my favorite tech websites to check out the latest news, I found that loading the web pages itself was really labored, as well as navigating the web pages. Once it loaded, the images were crisp and clear and the text was really clear and sharp. However, scrolling up and down on the web pages was really laggy, as well as pinching to zoom in on images or text. It really struggled, and that was a bit disappointing. However, when I played my favorite games such as Shadowgun Dead Zone on multiplayer, or Dead Trigger 2 or Asphalt 8 for racing, it seemed to handle those games like a champ. Of course, as to be expected, there was a little bit of frame loss. However, it really wasn't anything that I could complain about, at least not enough for me to not want to play the games. The graphics itself was really adequate. You know, you weren't able to notice that 240 DPI unless and until you started watching videos like Netflix or YouTube. And really, the only time I would notice those pixels start popping out was around objects that had dramatic curvatures, like people's faces or you know, a bouncing ball or something like that. But other than that, it looked really sharp and still in HD format. Now, to keep things going for hours on end with this device, you're looking at a 7500 milliamp hour battery, which by even today's standards, or anybody's standards, even in the tablet world, that's a pretty damn big battery. So anyways, guys, if you're in the market for a 10.1 inch tablet, for 250 bucks, you're getting a 10.1 inch display, IPS display, quad-core 1.6 gigahertz processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, HDMI out, micro SD card slot, 7500 milliamp hour battery, aluminum build tablet, and dual rear facing stereo speakers. That's a pretty damn good deal. Anyways, guys, hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, click that likes button down below, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe for more videos. I'll be placing a link in the description below this video so you guys can go and check out some of the specs a little bit further, as well as maybe even purchase one for yourself. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.